Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the topic Apex triggers. So these are the things we are going to discuss. What is trigger and how we have to write a trigger and what are the events we have supported from Salesforce and what type of triggers we have in salesforce.com and how we can write a trigger without handler and how we can write trigger with handler and how we can generate or how we can show exceptions or errors on the user interface through triggers based on the certain criteria and what are the limits we have on triggers and what are the references we have to learn more. So what is trigger first of all? Trigger is nothing but an Apex code which can perform custom actions based on the events before or after operations. Okay, that means when we have to write trigger first of all, whenever we want to achieve a functionality based on the events performing or based on the events occurring in an object, then we have to go with triggers. But in Salesforce, we have different kinds of features to get the functionality or to do some operations based on the events. Okay, one is workflow rules and another one is process builders, right? So whenever we can't achieve the functionalities what we want based on the events, okay, then only we want to, then only we have to write triggers. Okay, and again I'm telling you, whenever we want to achieve a complex functionality based on the events occurring on an object, events here, insert operations or update or delete or undelete, these things. And coming to events, we have different types of events, we'll see in the next slide. Okay, so this is the syntax how we can write the trigger. Okay, the trigger syntax is, first of all, you have to use trigger keyword and you have to specify trigger name based on your functionality, and on is a keyword, and again on which object you have to write a trigger. That means you have to specify object name where you want to write a trigger or where you want to achieve the functionality based on the events occurring on the specific object, and trigger events with comma separation. Okay, this events are after insert, before insert, like that we have to specify the events. Here in between that we have to write code block. This is the syntax we have to follow for writing the trigger. And what are the events we have in triggers? One is before insert and before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, and after undelete. These are the events we have in trigger events. Okay, what type of triggers we have? Okay, we have two types of triggers in Salesforce. One is before triggers, another one is after triggers. Before triggers means you can say whenever you want to update or validate the records before the record is saved into the database or before this record is committed to the database, then you have to write the before trigger. But how can you say it is before trigger? Whenever you specify before insert or before update or before uh, delete, like that, that means you are going to achieve some functionalities based on the before trigger. Okay, you may have the combination of after trigger and before trigger also, but whenever you have before events, then you can achieve or you can update or you can validate records before the records saved into the database. Whenever come come to the point after triggers. Okay, whenever we talk about after triggers, whenever we want to get the record details or whenever we want to do operations after saving the record into the database permanently, then we have to use after triggers. Okay, it will be after insert, after update, okay, after delete, like that. We'll see the examples. So before we are going to see the examples, we have to know the trigger context variables. What are the trigger context variables we have? We have new, old, and new map, old map. And is insert, is update, is delete, is undelete, is before, is after, like that. Right? But what are the, what is the purpose of these context variables? First of all, let's talk about the new, old, new map, old map. Okay. These four things will be useful for holding the records when we are whenever trigger fires. For example, if we write a trigger on an account, Okay, when we use trigger.new as a context variables, it will hold the records of account because you written the trigger on account. If you write a trigger on contact, it holds the contact records. That means trigger.new or new context variable hold the collection of records. Coming to the old, okay, it is also holding the collection of records, but it is holding the old version of the records. That means whenever we are editing or whenever we are going to delete or something else, okay, that means whenever we are doing operations on the existing record, okay, this old version is going to hold the old version of the records, and this new holds the new version of records. For example, if you create a trigger on an opportunity, okay, whenever you hold or whenever, no, it's not at all. Hi, today we are going to discuss the topic is Apex triggers. We are going to discuss these topics now. What is trigger and how we can write the trigger, that means trigger syntax. What are the events we have, what type of triggers we have, and a small example for you, and a small example with handler, that means with the best practices, and how we can add errors by using trigger, and what are the limitations we have in trigger. Okay, trigger is nothing but Apex code, okay, which can perform actions based on the operations occurring on an object. In other words, whenever we want to achieve the complex functionality which is not possible through the workflows or the process builders based on the events, then we have to write the triggers. Okay, whenever we want to achieve the functionality based on the events occurring on an object, okay, then we have to write the triggers. Okay, this is the syntax. Trigger is a keyword and trigger name. What name needs to be written? You can write your specific name, whatever you want. Okay, but it should be reasonable. And on is a keyword. Object name. On which object you want to write the trigger? You have to specify the object name and you have to specify the events with the comma separations. Events will be before insert, after insert, like that. These are the events: before insert, before update, before delete, and after insert, etc. And we have two types of triggers. One is before triggers, another one is after triggers. Whenever we want to achieve the functionality before the record is saved to the database, then we have to specify before, or we have to write the before triggers. And whenever we want to achieve the functionality after the record saved into the database or committed to the database, then we have to write after triggers. Then how can you say it is before trigger or after trigger, or it is a combination of before and after triggers based on the events you specified? Okay, if you say, I mean, if you specify before insert or before update, it is a before trigger. If you specify after insert, after update, it will be executed as after trigger. If you have both, it will be combination of before and after trigger. But to deviate or to variate the functionality for before operations or after operations, you have to specify context variables. Okay, and to hold the collection of records or records in the map format, you have to use the context variables. What are all the context variables we have in trigger? Let's see. These are all the context variables we have in trigger. Okay, coming to new, old, new map, old map. These context variables for holding the records. Okay, these context variables for holding the records. Okay, if it is a new, it will hold the new version of records. If it is a old, it holds the old version of records. Okay, and and coming to new map or old map, these are also collection of records, but the record will be in the format of map. And coming to is insert, is update, is delete, is undelete, is before, is after, these or is executing, these context variables will return true or false values. That means Boolean result. Okay, but why we have to use these context variables like is insert, is update? Whenever we want to deviate or variate the functionalities for different types of operations in the same trigger, okay, then we have to use these context variables to specify whether it is after enter or whether this block of code execute for after update or before update, like that, to variate the functionalities for different kinds of operations or different kinds of events, okay, then we have to use the trigger context variables like is insert, is update, is delete. As I told, these context variables will return the boolean result. And coming to new, old, new map, old map, these context variables holds the collection of records, okay, where you are working on. And this is the simple example for a trigger without handler. Okay, this example scenario is whenever an account is inserted, it should create a contact under that account with account name. What is the scenario is whenever an account is created or inserted, it should create a contact under that account with the account name. For that, what I am writing here, I have to write a trigger on account. Why? Why? Because we have to write a trigger on an object, okay, where an event is going on, okay, and from which object we have to get the functionality. So on that object, we have to write the trigger. That means here what is the scenario? Whenever an account is inserted, that means the event is occurring on an account. That means where you have to write the trigger, you have to write the trigger on account. That's why we are writing the trigger account on account, okay, with the name account actions. Let's write this trigger on account. So this is the org, okay, this is the Salesforce Techbook org, and this is Salesforce Techbook org. Here, how can we write the trigger first of all? Where we want to write the trigger now? On account. Okay. To create a trigger, you have to click on a setup and customize, and you have to select object. On which object you want to create a trigger? On account, we want to create a trigger. Okay. And you have to write trigger here, new. Click on new. And you can use aside.io or developer console also for the same. So account actions, and for now, what is the functionality? After inserting, that means whenever an account is inserted, I want to create, or it should create a contact under that account. That means what should be, I mean, what is the event should be specified in the account trigger after insert, right? So for that, we have to write bulk triggers always. That means your trigger should work for a single record or more records or multiple records, right? So for in that way, we are going to write trigger now. Let's see. For holding list of contact or going to insert, I am declaring a list of contacts. Contact list. And so I have to loop through the collection of accounts where event is occurring, where accounts are inserting. That means I have to loop through the inserted records, right? For that, how can you get the collection of records? Okay, that is trigger dot new. It holds the collection of records which are inserting. Now account act obj. This is the account instance to loop through the trigger.new collection. Okay, it is like a list of accounts. And now I'm creating contact records. Okay, for giving you simple example, I am taking this example. Okay, account id actobj.id. Okay, because I am framing or I am writing this line for relating the account and contact, and I'm assigning account name to last name of contact, and I'm adding the contact to list, and I'm checking whether it has contact records or not by using isEmpty method. Okay, if it is not empty, I'm inserting contact list. Okay, here if you observe here, I am writing this insert statement out of the for loop. That means in Salesforce, as we have to follow the best practices, you should not write DML statements or SOQL queries within the for loop. So you have to prepare the records and you have to add those into the list or map, and you have to perform the DML operations out of the loop or after the for loop. Okay. So I saved. Now it is active. Now let's create an account to see the result. Salesforce Techbook. Okay, save. So it should create a contact under this account. See here, this is the contact created under account. So this is how we have to write a trigger on an object. Okay. Now let's see what we written here. See, if you see here, we written entire logic in the trigger. But as best practice, you should not write your whole logic in the trigger. You always should write this logic in the handler. Handler means it's an Apex class which is going to be invoked from trigger. Okay. And you have to invoke that methods or Apex, I mean methods from that Apex class for processing your logic. That's how you have to follow the best practices. See here, I'm just using aside.io for writing code here. And one more thing you have to remember, we always prefer writing the single trigger on an object. Okay. And one more thing, as I told you, we have to write handler. Why we have to write handler? First of all, it's the best practice. Second thing is, if we have more logic or complex logic or more lines of code, okay, it should be readable. Okay, for that we have to write everything in the handler. It will be good practice. Okay, but according to best practice, you always use handler instead of writing your entire logic in the trigger. So now I am creating one Apex class, account actions handler. Okay, here I am going to write a static method, public static, okay, void create contacts. And here I'm just using list of account as a parameter. Okay, because I am going to pass that list of accounts which is going to insert, okay, through this method. Here if you see, I'm just taking this code, copy. So here instead of trigger.new, you can use accounts list. That's it, nothing else. So now we have created an account or account actions handler. Okay, and we have created a method to create contacts under the accounts which is going to insert. Now we have to invoke the same method from the trigger by removing the entire logic from the trigger. See here, I'm editing this trigger. Okay, now what is the class name? This is the class name, and this is the create method name. Okay, and trigger.new. So now let's see the result, whether it is going to work or not. I'm going to create another account after a test account. So again, I am going to show you this is our trigger. Now there is no logic. Now test account, save. Let's see whether it creates a contact with the test account name or not. See here, this is the contact. This is how it will work. That means there is no difference in the functionality, but as a Salesforce developer, we have to follow best practices according to Salesforce standards. Okay, we have to write entire logic or always, I mean, complete logic in the handler, and we have to get the same thing into the trigger. That means we have to invoke the same thing from the trigger. Okay. Now, for now, if you observe this trigger, let's open this trigger also in aside.io. So if you observe here, I'm not using any context variables except trigger.new. But now I have another scenario on the same object. That means on account only. Now what I am doing, whenever account is inserted, I am inserting a contact under an account, right? But whenever I have another scenario, that is whenever account rating is changed from hot to warm, then I want to create an opportunity. How can I create? Let's see. Now in this scenario, you can see how to use context variables like context variables like is insert, is update, like that, and how it will be useful. We can see this in the scenario. First of all, let's write a logic for creating opportunity. Create opportunities. Okay, and here what I am passing, map of id comma account. Okay, new account map. Okay, and map of id comma account old account map. So now list of opportunities, I'm declaring an opportunity list for holding the list of opportunities for insert. Okay, here I'm going to loop through the new map. So here account actobj dot values. Whenever you use values method, it automatically gives the list of accounts, because in the key value pair, you have account record in the value place. Now you have to check whether account rating is changed or not. Okay, how can you check? Simple, you have to use this new map dot get of actobj dot id is the key. Okay, key is the id here always, dot rating not equals old map get of actobj dot id dot rating. So here what I am doing here, I am trying to compare the old value of rating in the same record and new value of the rating in the same record. Okay, whatever the record we are getting through the loop. Okay, in this how it works means let me tell you, if you write after update, then how it works means, see here, for now it is hot. So now it is the existing record. Now rating is hot. Now I am changing to warm. That means I have, okay, I have changed rating to warm from hot. Okay, then how it works? This new account map holding this record after changing. Okay, this whole record, that means this new account map holding the whole record of account after modifications to the database. Okay, and this old account map holding the entire account record before modifications to the database, before modifications on the record into the database. That is only the thing. That's why this can have old values of the record. This can have new values of or latest or current values of the record. And now what we have to compare, we don't need to compare entire record. This is up to this, it gives you whole record or complete record, but I have to compare rating only. That's why I am accessing the rating field and I'm comparing whether it is same or not. Okay, if it is not equal to, I mean, if new value and old value is not equal to not equals, then if old value and new value is not equal, then I am comparing the current rating value. Okay, up to this what I am comparing, whether rating is changed or not. That means whether old value and new value is equal or not. If it is not equal, then I am comparing. If it is warm, then I am creating opportunities. Opportunity account ID is the lookup, and opportunity obj name equals act obj dot name. Now this is how we have to write. Okay, now we have two methods in the actions handler. One is create contacts and create opportunities. Till now we are not invoking this create opportunities from the trigger. Now I am going to invoke that create opportunities. But this method should be invoked for after update. That means on update of an account. For that, or for getting that functionality on update of an account, for achieving that functionality on update of that account, you have to specify event after update. Then only this trigger can recognize the functionality, or this trigger can execute the functionality whenever an account have the update. Okay, whatever the update. Even you click on edit and save, it is taking as update, it will fire the trigger which is having the after update, but it will look into the functionality. Okay, I mean based on your logic, it will execute the functionality. Okay, but it always fires the trigger if trigger has the events. That means if your object have certain events which are having the same events on trigger, it always fires the trigger. Let's see. Now here we have after insert, after update. This trigger will get fired whenever account is inserted, whenever an account is updated. Okay. Now I'm sending trigger dot new map. Okay, and trigger dot old map as parameters. Okay. If you see here, this trigger dot new map will be in the format of map of, it holds like this. Okay, both are holding in this format, but two maps having the two different values. One is new version and another one is old version. But if you see here, we are invoking two methods from the trigger. This methods unnecessarily called for all events. All events means whatever you event specified here. Here you specified insert and update, right? Whenever an account is inserted, you want to create a contact. You don't need to process any opportunities. Whenever an account is updated, you want to create opportunities. You don't need to create any contacts, but you have two functionalities in the same trigger. Okay, whenever you have this type of situation, whenever you have multiple functionalities for different events, okay, then you have to use the context variables. Okay, that means you have to variate the functionality for events, or you have to variate the functionality for different events, right? Let's see here how we can see if trigger is trigger dot is insert and trigger dot is before. That means not is before, is after. Okay, and opportunities should be created for update event. Trigger dot is update and trigger dot is after. So by using these context variables, we are able to variate the functionalities for insert and update here. Okay, that means whenever an account is inserted, it will execute this block only. Whenever an account is updated, it will execute this block only because of our context variables we used here. Okay, this is how we have to use the context variables. Let's see the result now. So now we don't have any value on rating. Okay, let's take heart. Okay, now I updated uh, rating from blank to heart. That's why there is no opportunity. Now we have heart on this record. Okay, see here, opportunity is only 0. Now I am changing uh, rating to warm. What it is giving? Okay, why it is giving? So on opportunity, whenever we are creating any records, we have to take care of required fields also. Here what we missed on opportunity, stays and close date. Let's add values for the stays name, those fields. Stays name is prospecting and opportunity which is dot close date. equals system dot today. Okay. So now let's see. Now the new value is rating. I changed the value of rating from hot to warm. Okay. Now let's see. See here, it's created one opportunity. Okay. This is how context variables will be working. I think you understand why we have to use context variables to variate the functionality for different events. Okay. Let's So now we have completed handler with handler. See here, if you see here, we have add error method for showing the error messages or for validating the records or preventing the save or delete of the record. Okay, we have to use add error method in the triggers. If you see here, the functionality is or scenario is we want to prevent the deletion of primary contact. How can you do it? By using trigger. How can you do it? By using trigger. Let's see. Here we have created a trigger. Prevent contact delete is the name of the trigger on contact, because where we have to write the trigger on contact only, because we want to prevent the deletion of primary contact when it is primary. When is primary is true. So this is the logic to write. Let's see how it works. The scenario is we want to prevent the deletion of primary contact. Do we have any primary field? We don't have. Let's create a custom field. Is primary checkbox. So I'm not explaining how to create a field here. So let's write a trigger on contact. Okay. Trigger name is prevent delete contact. Contact. When we have to, whenever they are trying to delete contact, that means before delete. For whenever you use before delete, you always use, you have to use trigger dot hold contact cont obj colon trigger dot hold. If cont obj dot is primary true, then how you can use dot add error contact or primary contact cannot be deleted. Okay, let's see how it works or not. So now let's go to the contact. Where is primary checkbox? Checked. Now I'm trying to delete it. See here, primary contact cannot be deleted. Okay, this is how we have to add errors by using trigger. Okay. And here, if you see here, this is only one parameter, right? But add error method can take two parameters. One is error message, another one is boolean value. If you put a boolean value true or false, based on that you can add HTML tags also. Okay, you try once, but then you will get to know. Okay, explore on that. So we have different types of limits. Now we are going to talk about limitations or considerations while implementing triggers in Salesforce. Okay. In triggers, you cannot or you can't use get content or get content as PDF methods. Okay, these are the page reference methods. You can't use these methods. And we can't use after delete triggers with the content version object. And we can't use after undelete, we can use after undelete trigger event only on the following standard objects, okay, and custom objects, on any custom object, okay. And the triggers on attachment object won't fire when it is created via case feed publisher, okay, or otherwise email related list and adds an attachment file. Okay, these are the considerations you can see in the references. Okay, and you can see more data about the considerations and limitations in the references. Okay. And one more thing, the important thing is you can't do callouts directly from the trigger. Whenever you want to do callouts from the trigger, then you have to write the future method, or you have to use the future method to invoke the callouts from the trigger. Okay, these are the references we have. You can go through these references also, and you can go through this video. And if you like this video, you subscribe the channel and you just click on bell symbol to get the notifications. And we are going to introduce a lot of technical stuff in the same channel going forward based on the interest from the subscribers. And please subscribe if you like it, and please share the same with your friends also. We are going to put all the technical stuff and administration stuff from the Salesforce in the same channel, that is Salesforce Techbook. Thank you. All the best.